Assalamualaikum and good morning, everybody. Thank you for finding the time and joining today's University for Society Forum. The theme for today's forum is Everyday Heroes Coming Together to Empower the Community. My name is Ayoib Che Ahmad, and I'm Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation, University of Utara Malaysia. And I'm also a Professor of Accounting at Tunku Intan Safina School of Accountancy, UUM. I shall be your moderator today, and joining us today are community leaders and professionals who have played their roles in community engagement and development. We have with us here today Yang Bahagia Professor Dr. Eileen Tan. She is the Executive Director of Asia Pacific University Community Engagement Network, better known as APUSEN, and Professor of Marine Biology, University Science Malaysia. The second panelist is Yang Bahagia Datin Kathleen Chew. She is the Program Director of YTL Foundation. Datin Kathleen is also the Group Legal Advisor of YTL Corporation Berhad. She sits on the board of several organizations and has a keen interest in children education. The third finalist is Associate Professor Dr. Sharifah Farida Said Omar. She is the Head of Infectious Diseases Unit in University Malaya Medical Center, UMMC, and Associate Professor in Internal Medicine and Infectious Disease, University Malaya. So welcome to everyone, and thank you for making time despite your busy schedules as always. Before we start, let me explain a bit about the program. University for Society, or U4S, is an initiative by the Ministry of Higher Education and all the public universities to band together and work alongside each other to empower the community. In the previous U4S forum, we have discussed more on what are the good things that universities have done to help the community and to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. In today's edition of the U4S series of forum, we group together everyday heroes that have been making waves in empowering the community. All the panelists today come from diverse backgrounds. However, just as the spirit of U4S, our focus will remain the same: impactful connections and to mobilize whatever resources we have in spreading more positivity and giving back to the masses. Before we start, let me explain the flow of this forum. This forum will have 4 segments. In segment 1 and 3, I will pose to each panelist questions. In segment 2, we shall pick up some questions from the audience. Finally, in segment 4, we will wrap up this program. In each segment, each panelist will be given about 5 to 7 minutes to share their thoughts and insights. So it seems that today we have 3 ladies as our heroes. I'll start with Dato' Eileen Tan first. Dato'?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Prof. Ayoib. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. You have been actively involved with community engagement, I think, for almost 3 decades now. As an advocate for community development, you need to not only leverage on people, but to create leverage for the people both in the academia and community. Put it another way, community leaders need to identify the needs of the people and then provide those things to them. So can you share with us, how do you achieve this?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Ayoib.
Yeah.
Salam sejahtera dan salam hormat, and very good morning to all. And to all my Muslim friends, I wish selamat menjalani ibadah puasa to all.
Terima kasih.
Yeah. First of all, I wish to take this opportunity to thank University Utara Malaysia for inviting me to this University for Society U4S forum. It is actually an opportunity for me to share and also to learn through this forum. Just now, Prof. Ayoib mentioned 3 decades of community engagement. Suddenly, Prof. Ayoib, you have made me feel so old.
No, still young.
But I cannot deny that I have learned a lot in these 3 decades together with the communities. Many times, when the researchers or academics want to conduct a project with the community, even from the corporate members, through the scientists or the researchers or academics, we always feel we know the best for the community, and we decide what best for the community to do. We always forget to consider the community's belief, culture, needs, religion, and their comfort zone, or simply what they are used to. We always forgot about that. We enter the community areas or village and start telling them what to do, and telling them all sorts of SOPs, standard operation procedures, and some projects even have modules to follow and comply. This is all very academic. Well, we are academics and we think we know best, and we always use the academic way to approach the community. We forgot that every community is different. Even children been raised by the same parents behave differently. How can one SOP or module fits all community? It's not possible. We need to know what is the needs and what is required by the community and what is comfortable for them. Many times we forget that we are dealing with real communities, real day-to-day issues faced by the communities, problems faced by the communities to make ends meet. Many of us are never good listeners. We are lecturers, we talk a lot, we hardly listen. So it's time for us to be good listeners also. We also forget that poverty is not all about not having money, but also about not having skills and also not having hope. In order to be a good community leader, first, we must learn how to listen. Listen to the needs of the community. Listen to their problems. And listen to what they can share in terms of their knowledge. It is about co-learning and co-creating solutions for a better tomorrow. Community leaders need to cultivate respect and trust from the community. We cannot just enter a village and demand the community to follow what we wanted just because we think we know better. You do this, you do that, this is best for you, this is best for your kids. It doesn't work that way. Most probably, the community will chase us away the next time when we enter the village. Community leaders need to empower, provide mental strength, and be engaged with the community from the very beginning of every project or any projects or program. Once the community leaders understood the community's capability, I have to mention here that community itself has their own capability and skills. Once, as a leader, community leader, when we understand the community's capability, interests, and skills, informed decision can be made with the community to empower them. Informed decision, not instructions. Decisions to be made together with acceptance from the community. The partnership between the community leaders and the community is mainly based on respect and trustworthiness and working together. What I usually say, celebrating the differences without any barriers. Once respect and trust has been gained, the fruits of success with the community can be achieved. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. I agree with you very much too. Even with our children, we have to treat them uniquely because each of our children, they behave differently and also have even the level of intellectuals and understanding is also different from one child to another. So I agree with you, Holly, And also the fact that not only that, we also cannot simply use one measure or one SOP and we expect it to fit all communities. That will not work, and I agree with you. And but I know you are very committed with your community engagement. We have been together for a few years, and next I'm going to pose pose a question to Datin Kathleen. Datin, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Now, YTL Foundation has been at the forefront in building better societies through better education since 1997. That's 20 years plus. And again, you're still young, just like Aileen. Don't worry about that. So the success of your initiative lies predominantly on your team building ability, where you build cohesion among team members through collaboration while addressing specific situational and contextual needs. Again, can you share with us how these are realized and how these initiatives have helped to empower individuals and communities to be catalysts of change in YTL's foundation's context? Yes, please.
Yes, yeah, I'm delighted to be here and just to share some of our learnings with you. As you know, we are a corporate foundation, and so generally people look at foundations as grant givers, right? They come to us and they say, just give us some money, you don't really have to be involved, and it's all funding proposals. But we found in some cases, yes, when you can trust the organizations that asked you for funding, you can do that. But then on the other hand, we like to be also on the ground and involved in projects ourselves, because just sitting kind of in an office and just evaluating proposals, doesn't actually take you down to the community. And what we're trying to do, it really is to make change, positive change, right? And I mean, for us, we concentrate on education. So, I mean, this takes me back to one of the programs that we run, which is called the Frog Classroom Program. And it's a program that we go to schools and we try to help them build a classroom that is suitable for, like 21st century learning. It's a classroom that has technology empowered, it's got the internet with computers, and it's bright and cheerful. And there are no tables in rows, the tables are circular, kids can talk to each other, the teacher stands in the center and not at the front. And how that really started was, I was invited several years back by Teach for Malaysia to teach a class in an underprivileged school. So the kids there were from various backgrounds, but quite rough backgrounds. And when I got into the school, and I'm supposed to be the guest teacher, I was shown into this classroom, and the classroom was like in shambles. I mean, I think, people who've worked in schools and traveled around the country will know that their facilities vary. And this school, because of the fact that the kids were quite rough, the tables were almost 50% couldn't be used. They were all broken. The chairs were broken. We had to go to other rooms to find, proper chairs and tables. And the door had a big hole in it because the kids had just kicked it in. The window panes were not in existence, right? And I was trying to teach this class and thinking to myself, if I was a kid that came here, and I wanted to learn, and I look around me and I said, well, people don't really, what kind of environment is this for me to learn? It's an environment to be violent, to kind of draw graffiti. And so we started on this idea that, let's try to create a model classroom that these kids can feel comfortable in. And I'm lucky that, we're part of the YTL group and we have our design department. So we got our architects and we came in. And I said, just imagine, you've all been to school, imagine you were a kid back in school. What would inspire you to come to school every day and want to explore and want to learn? And I gave them this task, and architects are good at that. And I also said, but you must make sure that whatever you design can be built by the individuals or the students or the teachers or the parents themselves. Don't do something so fancy that they need to get contractors in to do. And so they did it, and they themselves went and they, transformed this wonderful, beautiful classroom. And what they did was they said, oh my goodness, these boys must be full of aggression and we need to let them, get it out. So they put a punching bag in there. And so the kids could go, and the teachers were really, I mean, the teachers themselves got really excited with the punching bag. And anyway, I mean, what really happened was, I think that the team that went in there, you know, because they saw what it was and they really wanted to help the kids. So they worked amazingly together, and the school saw this happening, that it was an outside team that came in and wanted to do something for them. And the teacher, when the classroom started, you know, of course she was in tears because she said, you know, I can't imagine this was my same classroom. And then, you know, remarkably, we left them alone for a while. And then when we visited the school again, they had got together and built another classroom themselves, you know, and trying to raise their own funds, trying to do everything on their own, not asking us for anything. And so that was a real lesson for us, and how if you do something that touches the community and that they want it themselves, they can actually replicate what you've helped them to do. And so that program, we have now 300 over classrooms in schools all around the country, and we don't anymore do it for them. You know, what we do is we project manage a project for them. We try to help them fundraise. You know, we give them tools, and there's certain things that we do, like we give them the tables and chairs. So that is part of what we do, plus the design and the framework. But then each community has to do it themselves. So we've seen like the parent teachers, the PIBGs of the school, that the parents will come in or the teachers will come in, and then they together fundraise. We basically finance half the cost of the room, and then they then do it themselves. And you know, we feel that this is so important because we've seen when sometimes when people give it, you get something on a plate, it's all very nice, but you didn't put yourself into building it, right? And so after a while, it's just kind of that's another thing that another company came and put in there for us, and we don't really need to use it anymore, and let's get on with life. So yeah, community empowerment, you're absolutely right, is so important. And so a project we recently started on was due to, there was a study, I think that UNICEF did on stunting in our community, PPR communities in the Klang Valley, that showed some kind of really, you know, very dismal results of how we tackled stunting in our country. And we were quite moved to say, what can we do to help these communities? And so we've worked with different project partners. I mean, we're a corporate foundation, so we have, I think, spoken to as well in the medical department. We've kind of got several professionals together to see how we can help with nutrition. That is our big goal. But we know that if we just go in and say, guys, this is what you do, this is the nutritious food, don't eat this stuff, this is how you feed your children, it's not really going to work that way, because does the community want that? Right? So we started with working with an NGO called Toy Libraries, because they build libraries and safe spaces for mothers to bring their children. And so they started as well with having a community meeting, a town hall, asking everybody, would you like us to do this for you? Is this something that would be helpful? And so we've started with a project that the kids can have a little toy library, play together. And I mean, we hope that, through building trust that way, we can then move on to the nutrition programs, and then kind of introduce through our partners, what good nutrition is, and then maybe cooking classes, and then empowering the women. So yeah, it's all a process, isn't it? When you want to build community and tackle these very deep-seated issues. It can't be that you come in from outside and say, this is my vanilla formula, and you have to take it. And yeah, I mean, that's really our approach. And we've learned over the years, that what works and what doesn't work.
The 300 schools, are they primary schools?
Sorry, I can't hear you, Prof.
Yeah?
Yes, can you repeat that?
The schools that you are involved with this engagement, are they all primary schools?
No, they're primary and secondary schools.
Primary and secondary.
Yeah.
So yeah, even primary and secondary school are now using student-centered learning. And even in the university as well, we are now changing our classroom to make it more student-centered.
Yeah.
Previously, it's kind of lecturers and students. Now we also embrace that concept to have more student learning concept. And I agree with you. And also, it just shows that we need collaboration between corporate sector and the education sector. And the excellent work by your teamwork, I'm sure, is because of the leadership by yourself and also the support from the company YTL Corporations. Talking about teamwork, we have here also Associate Professor Dr. Sharifah, a frontliner who leads her team battling the COVID-19 virus. We see a lot of pictures and read about how hard the frontliners have worked and dedicated their lives to flattening the curve. Prof, can you tell us about this experience and what does a typical day be like working at the front? And tell us, how do you ensure that despite all the constraints and the challenges that the frontliners face, their morale remains high? Can you share with us?
Thank you, Prof. Ayoib. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. To Prof. Ayoib, to my fellow panelists, Dato' Aidin and also Datin Kathleen. And also special thank you to my friend Marlene, who invited me to this forum. So when she first—
in the other room, by the way.
When she first invited me, I was a bit unsure whether I was suitable because the topic is about coming together to empower the community, because my work is basically obviously at the University Malaya Medical Center, where as the head of the infectious disease unit, we look after our inpatients and also our outpatient infectious diseases. So this would be, you know, HIV, dengue, TB, leptospirosis, and so on. So it's mainly inpatient, but then I thought, okay, these are also patients who are coming from the community. So in a way, it's also, there is some connection with the community. So the COVID-19 is basically our hot topic at the moment at the hospital. So I'm actually on my sabbatical when this first thing came about. I started my sabbatical in October last year, and I was supposed to finish it in July. But because I did not have, like, you know, any engagement overseas, so I just stayed within the hospital, within the university, to finish up my work that was pending. We first had our meeting early January. We actually called it an emergency meeting to prepare ourselves for this unknown pneumonia that was coming up from China. So since I was around, my colleague said, come along for the meeting. So I sat in and we sort of tried to figure out what was going on, tried to see what we had to do, whether we needed to push the panic button then, or we could just sit back and see what would happen. Middle of January, I went to Bangkok for a conference and met other infectious disease colleagues, and we were starting to hear things from other hospitals, how people were gathering information. And, you know, the thing just snowballed since then. By middle of January, end of January, we opened our first ward. We had our first patient on the 26th of January. And I was still on my sabbatical during this period of time. I had a fairly good team, and I felt that they were able to, you know, they were still coping very well without me being there full time. But then, you know, as an infectious disease physician, this is probably a once in a lifetime experience. I was there during H1N1, and this is completely different compared to H1N1 in terms of the intensity, the fear, and so on. And this is basically a very good opportunity to apply your knowledge in infectious disease, epidemiology, public health, everything all rolled into one, and at such a fast pace. So at the end of February, I decided, no, I had to come back. I didn't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. So joined in the team, took over the inpatient management for COVID patients. things escalated very, very fast. By March, we had 4 active wards open. We had 20 plus ICU beds ready for our patients. We had a few step-down wards for patients who were a bit more stable. We had more than 100 beds ready for our patients, ready to receive them. But at the same time, UMMC is a bit, even though we're not as big as Sungai Buloh Hospital, for example, but UMMC is unique because we are a hybrid hospital. So even though we were receiving COVID positive patients and patients suspected to have COVID, we still had other non-COVID patients. So balancing out, the patients who did not have COVID and who did have COVID, where they shared resources, shared services in the hospital, while at the same time keeping everyone safe, was probably one of the biggest challenges as well. And with health, even though we are healthcare workers, we have the same fears as everyone else. We have the same uncertainty, from all the way up from professors and consultants all the way down to your cleaners in the hospital. So we had to address all these issues that were coming out from different aspects or different layers of the staff working in the hospital. So over the past 3 months, we've admitted just over 270 patients, where 135 were positive for COVID. The rest were thankfully negative and discharged. And we are at the lowest of capacity at the moment. I'm sure you've seen the figures all over the country. But we are bracing ourselves once the MCO is lifted for a second, third wave. And we're trying to prepare ourselves for all different eventualities. So typically what happens on a daily basis, I'm actually a bit embarrassed to call myself a frontliner, because I'm not one of those that wears the full PPE with your mask and your goggles and your things on. Basically, my job is really to just make sure that the show runs. The wards are ready, the management, the SOP guidelines are all ready. So day to day, basically, I come to the ward, I do a quick ward round, but it's my junior doctors who actually go in and see the patient and examine them. I only see the patients if they are very, very sick and need a higher opinion, if you like. And then I attend the task force meeting where all the decisions are made on how to conduct ourselves in the hospital, what needs to be done, guidelines and whatnot. And then after the meeting is about, implementing all the decisions made during the task force. It's continuous meeting all stakeholders within the hospitals, making sure the guidelines are rolled out, understood, and also followed. Rostering. So we're like changing our roster depending on how many wards we have and so on. And also continuously updating ourselves with the scientific knowledge, because every day something new is coming out, and we just need to make sure that we are on top of things. On top of that, we're also doing a lot of research work as well. Morale, there's lots of challenges, as I mentioned. I think the speed of the escalation is of how quickly cases just accumulated scared a lot of people, including us. Preparing for the infrastructure for that, and also preparing emotionally and physically for that kind of number of patients coming in, having to adapt very quickly to a disease that we were all not very familiar with. It's something completely new. Dealing with shortages in PPEs, for example, making sure that our staff is protected when they see these COVID patients. So again, it's a matter of not just instructing, telling people what to do, this is what you need to do, but meeting them sometimes face to face, even though we're not supposed to have many face to face meetings, but face to face, Zoom, WebEx, everything has been used so that we are in touch with our staff within the hospital and make sure that everybody is well. On top of that, the other important thing is to keep the morale high is making sure they're fed well, because during the MCO especially, getting food was not easy. Grab drivers couldn't come in, deliver food to us. So making sure we had donors who gave us food. We got coffee from our orthopedics colleagues every day, and that was like the highlight of the morning, getting coffee from them. So things like that, helps a lot. Yeah.
You also mentioned about research activities that have been done either by you or your center. Are there research on developing the medicine to combat this virus?
Yeah, within University Malaya itself, not specifically to look for medicine to combat the virus, but we do have some research to evaluate different treatment modalities, which I think I'll talk about a bit more later.
Okay, all right. Do we have questions from the audience, Shani? Not yet. Okay. Maybe another question that I would like to pose is about the sustainability of these community engagement works. The younger generation today are truly wired through the social media and digital world, and they sometimes don't realize the importance of human touch, like what Dr. Eileen mentioned earlier. They are very technological or technology savvy, connected virtually, but somehow they are very distant in human relations. So in your opinion, how do we engage with this generation so that we can ensure that the acts of philanthropy, benevolence, and volunteerism will continue in the future, will sustain? Any one of you want to answer that?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, Dato, please.
Yeah, Prof. Ayoib.
Yeah.
That I think the question raised by Prof is very significant in the current scenario. Even with our students, you know, they do not know, you know, the skill of communication nowadays. And it's difficult for a lecturer or a mentor to actually reach out to this young generation when they have a barrier of IT savvy in them. You know, they would rather WhatsApp us or email us or you know, rather than after class stay back and talk to us. You know, that is a very serious concern of our younger generation. And how do we actually now, you know, not only reaching out to them is an issue, how do we get them into volunteerism? You know, that is also a huge barrier in getting them to be involved in community engagement work. I would emphasize a bit more on that in the next segment because I think in the next segment I will be more talking about cultivating the volunteerism interest among the younger generation, starting from their stage in the campus.
Right. Yeah, we need continuity, and especially for Muslims in the month of Ramadan. Like now, they usually got involved in you know, doing charities and giving alms and donations, but this is more of seasonal. You know, only during the month of fasting. But we are talking about future development and youth development, how to inculcate volunteerism among the among the youngsters. So, okay.
Can I say something about that, Prof?
Sure, I think.
Yeah. So whilst I feel that the younger generation are digitally enabled, and yeah, they do like to communicate very quickly and all at once with 1,000 people or whatever, however many hundred friends that they have, right, through social media. But I have found we deal with a lot of young people because we give scholarships, you know, to people who go to the universities that you guys are in, and we have found that, you know, you need to give them that opportunity. But if you give them the opportunity, they embrace it. So one of, for our scholars, you know, they need to do internships with us as would be normal. And in their first year holidays, when they do their first internship, we put them into our program where we teach refugee kids. So we have two centers. One we teach kind of the refugee community, and one in Sentul, where the kids come from low-income families, and they live in the PTRs around there. And it is amazing what we see. These kids sometimes are reluctant to start, but at the end of it, they write such amazing testimonies as to their experience. The fact that, they've met a kid whose parents have died on their way, running away from persecution. I mean, it just really changes their lives and their perspective. So I think that there is great hope, because this generation is very connected. But if you connect them in the right way, with that goodness in themselves, I think, it's something, I mean, Prof. Eileen will talk about how we nurture them in this direction, but I think there's huge potential for volunteerism within the young generation.
Sure, there is a huge potential. And also, like you said, I guess we're supposed to trust the youngsters, give them a chance, and over time they develop themselves to, be involved.
I completely agree with Dr. Kathleen and also Dr. Eileen. Yes, they are a generation that are like 24/7 on their phone, head down. And being in the university, teaching medical students, having that human touch is a must. There's no way that you cannot have face-to-face contact with the patient and that human touch. But I feel that we should let them, they've embraced this technology. I think we should let them find their way, use the technology so that they can have both worlds. And I think there will be a lot that they can do. We the older generation, we're not, I'm not that tech savvy. We can't just be stuck in our own ways and feel that this is all completely wrong and of no use. Because, for example, we obviously see our HIV/AIDS patient, and there's a lot of awareness, where a lot of communities that we need to reach out for, communities that would usually we cannot reach out to. But our younger medical students found a way through technology to move into this community and help them in that way. I think in terms of volunteerism, with technology, a lot can be done and has been done. Crowdfunding, public announcements, spreading awareness is escalated thousands of times with the use of technology, and the younger generations are the one who are the most tech savvy. So I think there's still a lot of hope.
Okay, I would like to remind the viewers, audience, they can post questions through Facebook Live. They can type the questions, and I will read it here for the panelists to answer. In the meantime, we'll move to the next segment. Now we'll start with Dr. Sharifah Farida. Doctor, you and your team at UMC are working on treatment for COVID-19. So can you please share some updates on the progress of that project? And what are the challenges of finding the cure for a virus that has caused a lot of mayhem across the globe? I understand from my reading that some commentators say that the medicine or the treatment can be, the study will at least will take at least 2-3 years to do that. I hope it can be achieved earlier. Maybe you can share some updates there.
Sure, Dato'. University of Malaya, under University of Malaya Medical Center, we are involved in a lot of research projects, but the one that we're very excited about is this project we call the STORM project. Basically, to look for a cure, to look for a medicine, to look for a vaccine, as you said, takes a long time. And I don't think we have that technology or capability to go that far. It's usually undertaken by bigger technological labs and institutions and even pharmacology companies to do that. But what we can do at the university or hospital level is look for ways to alleviate the morbidity that COVID is causing to our patients. So for this particular project, what we found is the majority of patients who get COVID, they do very well. They have very mild disease, so up to 70–80%. They probably don't even need to be admitted to the hospital, but because of the transmission, we admit them to the hospital. But there's a small group of patients that after about 5 to 7 days of being having symptoms, they may become very bad. And these are the patients that will need immediate treatment. They have difficulty breathing. They will need to be admitted to the ICU and overwhelm the ICU. So that's what happened in Italy, in Iran, in the US that you're seeing. So scientists everywhere have found that this trigger is something that's called the cytokine storm or cytokine release syndrome, where there's an overwhelming response in cytokines that's causing the patients to become worse. So the theory is if you give them a particular medicine, this might stop or slow down the storm, and therefore the patients will not develop severe disease. So the study that we are collaborating with our colleagues from Ministry of Health, so particularly Hospital Sungai Buloh, HKL, and also Hospital Seremban, and also our collaborators at Yale University in the US. So we've drawn up a protocol. I mean, thank God the numbers have gone down, but in a way, because of that, we don't have patients yet. But the study is ready to go. If we do have patients that fulfill the criteria, we'll be giving them these medications. So these are not new medications. These are medications that have been used before. So one is called tocilizumab, which is used in rheumatoid arthritis, and the other one is called methylprednisolone, which is just another very strong steroid that is used in a lot of diseases. So patients will be given either one of these medication, and hopefully when they receive this medication, they will not progress further and they would get more severe disease. Therefore, we will halt the progression, and therefore patients don't need to go to ICU or get very bad respiratory problems. So that's one of the main things that we're doing in terms of treatment. Finding a cure will take a while. We're still learning about the virus. And I said it needs a lot of resources to look for new drugs, to look for a cure for COVID-19. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We received two questions now. I think the first question is, let me read it first. It doesn't say who is the sender, but the question is, based on your experience and previous involvement with the community, how do you structure the interactions with the community? Who actually are the grasstops and the grassroots players? Should you speak to local elected officials, representatives of community-based organizations, neighborhood leaders, or people walking down the street? Simply put, how do you know at which level to engage in the community at the inception of the project? I suppose Dato', I think, will be suitable to answer this one because you are involved in many communities, not only in Malaysia, but overseas as well. Go ahead, Dato'.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, let's start on a local scenario, the community engagement in Malaysia itself first. Usually when I enter, I have an intention or wanted to do something for a selected community. The best, the what I call the approved way is to consult the community leader. It can be the penghulu, it can be the ketua kampung, or it can be in one of their NGOs, because some community, they have their persatuan kebajikan. So we would have, to approach them and express to them our intention and request to have a meeting with the whole community if possible. And during that stage, when we have the opportunity to having a face-to-face communication with the bigger group of the community, then from there, through our conversation, we would would know who would be interested and who would willing to make a change, a serious change in their life. Many of them would just come and attend, and then there's some light meals, they'll come in and then they'll go off, as to take attendance, among the community. But from the experience, we can actually identify the community, what I call them, the community champions, who can actually move together with us. Once we identify the community champions, it need not be just one person. It can be a group of people representing the community. Once we identify the community champions, we can start discussing with them their needs, their preference, and what is comfortable to them. We can actually throw a few projects to them and see which would be comfortable to them. And we would not ask them to drop everything and do the community work. We will ask them, why not you try this on a part-time basis? If it fits your lifestyle or fits into your normal working schedule, then by all means, they would be very much committed. That's how we approach. And talking about the international scenario, usually because there is more red tapes and protocol to it, that is why through APUSEN, which I'm going to share a little bit more later, we have our members in selected countries. Now we have members in 20 countries. So we will approach our members, and through the members, we can actually now reach out to the communities in those countries that you wish to help. So through those platforms, we would be guided properly and reach out to the potential community champions. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. In other words, it has to be very well planned. It cannot be touch and go. No. And also it has to be a long-term approach.
Yeah, Prof, I would like to also emphasize here, many of us, we feel that we are doing community engagement work. But in reality, a lot of the projects is actually touch and go project. And I would usually classify that as charity services. You go in, you go to royong, you give, you help them to paint, rebuild or renovate certain parts and we leave. And then the community will go back to their old lifestyle, and it doesn't help them much. That is not what we call community engagement, and there is no sustainability in that.
Yeah. It's more of community services rather than community engagement. Yes. Yeah. The next question, I think, is I'm going to pose to Datin Kathleen. It's Bawan Saleh Muhammad Noor. The name sounds familiar, but I'm not sure which Saleh Muhammad Noor. The question is, there are many sectors of society that are forgotten, such as the Orang Asal, Orang Ulu, and Penans. How can we address their needs? Datin, can you answer that? I cannot see the picture clearly, but I think this is from Tan Sri Saleh Muhammad Noor. He asking this question. Can you respond, Datin Kathleen?
How can we address the needs of these communities that are really, far away from us? I mean, it's a challenge because the communities are in these quite isolated areas, and like recently we were approached to help provide some kind of internet connectivity and devices to a community of students in an Orang Asli village in Perak, and they go to a school, an SMK, as Sekolah Menengah, and the teacher was desperately during the MCO trying to help them, give lessons to them, and she said, these kids don't. So she sent me a list of 24 names and said, can you help them? And when we did the check on the network to see whether there's any network coverage in that community, there is none. So for me, especially at a time like this, right, one of the most important things is to get communication into that community. And how are we doing that, So I know that the government with the MCMC, they have programs to take internet into these really distant communities. It's expensive to do because these villages are not very big, and you actually have to probably kind of put towers, many of them, just to link them up. But I think that's one way that, going forward, we're not going to look back, right? I think we'll talk about technology later. And technology, it is something that if we're going to bind us and allow us to understand, I think, each other better, because then we can communicate. So I would really advocate for, these rural communities being connected with high-speed internet, just like the rest of us, so that, they are not lost in their world. And in a crisis like this, we can continue to communicate with them.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kathleen. Since the questions keep coming now, but I suppose we have to finish this segment first, and then we'll go back to the Q&A sessions. The next questions is, I think I'll go back to Dr. Eileen. Dato, I think this is related to APUSAN. You have been helming Asia Pacific University Community Network, or APUSAN, for quite some time now. Personally, what defines your greatest achievement from a community engagement perspective? And looking back in your decades of helping others, what are the aspects that would help to make volunteering worthwhile and get more to join in?
Thank you, Prof. APUSAN, which stands for Asia Pacific University Community Engagement Network, has always been close to my heart. Currently, we have 100 members from 21 countries, and has gained global recognition. I've been with APUSAN for nearly 5 years, most probably the longest serving executive director in APUSAN. And APUSAN has gone beyond Asia Pacific region. APUSAN has members from USA, Germany, South Africa, Nepal, and it is a reflection of global recognition when we have members from areas that is outside Asia Pacific. And APUSAN is not only having members from the higher education institutions, we also have members from the NGOs, from the industries, and also from the corporate members. I consider this is an achievement because through APUSAN, we can actually now bridge the gaps between the higher learning institution, community, NGOs, and also the corporate members, synergizing together towards the same goal, a better tomorrow, extending our hands to the bottom billion and also the underprivileged and also the marginalized communities. The recognition of APUSAN is through the concept of working as one. It's not about it's not about USM, it's not about UN, it is about us as one, as a global university for all.
It's collective efforts.
Yeah, and APUSAN is also gaining more acceptance from the youth associations within the higher institution, because each higher institution we have the students' society, and now they are more actively involved in APUSAN activities, and also from NGOs, the youth NGOs, both in Malaysia and also globally. I would consider that as an achievement. And on the question of what makes volunteerism worthwhile, well, looking back to history and decades of helping others, I always advise others to be sincere and work from the heart. If the intention is sincere and from the heart, looking at the smiles of the faces of the community that we have helped is already a true reward itself to me. You know, when I share my stories, I always emphasize this. And when the students or the younger generation are with me in any mission, I will always make them notice what, at the end of the day, you can see all the smiles and all the confidence we have instilled in the community. Making a difference in other people's lives is indeed very satisfying reward. And I have been trying to instill this satisfaction and commitment among the young generations. This is not about getting recognition, getting popular among the community, but the satisfaction within ourselves. This has to be instilled, the satisfaction and the commitment among the young generation, and also trying to encourage more volunteerism among the youth of today. Once they see this as a reward, volunteerism will come easy. I always remind the younger generation, we are gifted, all of us are from the academics in the ivory tower. We are gifted with good brains, but we must also cultivate ourselves to be citizens of big minds with big hearts. Working from the heart is always my key principle, and passion, and having passion makes volunteerism sustainable. When I speak with passion, the power of the passion and commitment can actually spread faster to the youth who are with us, doing animation. That's how I usually convince the younger generation. And once they're with us, and like what Datin have mentioned, by the end of the day, when we were to exit from the community, and the community actually give us hugs, give us smiles, that is the satisfaction and will keep us moving despite some of the challenges we are facing in our daily life. Thank you.
This is a comment from one viewer, Tan Sri Saleh Muhammad Noor again. Prof. Dr. Eileen, he said, I agree that we should work with NGOs, but there is a propensity amongst Malaysians not to be involved. The apathy attitude and refusal to stand up and be accounted. So what do you think? How to overcome this problem?
I think what Tan Sri Saleh Makno have mentioned is very true. Sometimes in the actual world, in our daily life, there is many other things we are chasing after. Volunteerism is always a thing or a job that we would think we will do when we have extra time. But everybody is busy. Everybody has only 24 hours. Yeah. We don't have extra time. It's whether we want to do or not. Once committed in doing,
like you said before, I think work satisfaction is very important. That will keep us going, I think.
That's right. Once we cultivate the satisfaction, the volunteerism will come in quite easily.
Okay, next I'll pose a question to Datin Kathleen. If one were to view it positively, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought along with it digital transformation. We are seeing many people doing things online, and even schools and universities have adopted online learning. So within this transformation, how does YTL Foundation positions itself in enriching and inspiring educators, students, particularly the needy ones, parents, as well as other stakeholders, so that effective learning continues to take place despite the pandemic? Can you answer that?
Yes, I would be delighted to, because that is really the subject that has been so close to our work at the foundation since the MCO started. So, I mean, as I talked about briefly about the frog classrooms, I mean, those are not just physical facilities that we've built. They are to encourage the teachers and the students, to kind of make use of these wonderful resources that we have online. I always kind of think to myself, when I started working as a lawyer, I used to write everything. I needed a secretary to type everything for me. And life has changed so much now. I do everything on my own. I can, during the MCO, I don't need my secretary. I can, do all that because of this, digital tools that we have. And yet classrooms are still what it was when my mother was a teacher. And so when we did this frog classroom, it was really also to encourage online learning. And at YTL Foundation, that's one of the pillars that we have worked on, using technology in classrooms. So when MCO started, the first concern that we had as an education foundation was, what is going to happen with these children now that they're out of school? We know that some schools are better prepared than others, but a lot of schools are not really prepared to just take things off right into online platforms. And so when parents are kind of having to deal with their kids at home, they'll be worried, you know, especially the exam year parents. I mean, we're still a very exam oriented society. What is going to happen to my child, you know, when schools are closed? So we quickly kind of mobilized our partners. And luckily in our group, we have RTL Communications, which has a network. We have Prof Asia, which has a digital learning platform. And we quickly did a survey of parents and asked them, you know, do you have enough data? Do you have enough devices? Do you have enough learning resources? And our hypothesis was they didn't. And the survey of about 900 people came back in 2 days, and that was the result that we saw. So we started on a program where we are giving out 40 gigabytes of data free to any child in government school. So the parents apply for it, and each parent can get up to 5 SIM cards if they have 5 children. And then the digital resources. So, you know, on the one hand, schools that were really savvy could actually try to get online and provide resources and teach the children that way. But we know, again, you know, other schools don't. So we started creating digital resources. And so we brought Teach for Malaysia. It was one of those things, was like, who can move really fast in this at this time when everybody is locked down? So we got Teach for Malaysia, and they're young, savvy teachers, and they came in and they helped us to build lessons. And those lessons were mapped to the period of the MCO, when we thought the kids would be out of school. So every week we release lessons. And these lessons can be used by parents. We were really looking at parents. You know, teachers will know how to teach, and teachers will know what material they need. But if a parent was at home and somehow not connected to the school or the teacher, and we had been able to give them enough data to be able to do online learning, then they would need help, you know, to keep their children learning. So these lessons are very friendly. They're not heavy, they're light touch. They use a lot of videos, which is what, you know, engages kids these days. They're used to it. And so that's kind of, you know, real concentration. We've been trying to build these digital resources. And then, of course, you know, but behind all this, we know that there's a big community of people that will still be left out. Every day you see in the newspapers, the B40 community, the kids don't have devices, they can't learn online. And so we started on a program where we said, if you were a B40 family, you know, we would give you a smart device, which is a handphone, which is what we could get hold of very quickly. And invited people to nominate someone they knew, because we knew that these B40 communities, some of them don't know how to nominate themselves. I mean, they're not reading the papers, they're not looking at all this. So, you know, if an NGO working with a community knows that that community is needy, the NGO could nominate them. And so we've seen there's this community in Sarawak. It's called Kampung Sion, and we've been working with them for several years, partnering with an NGO. So we kind of helped them put in clean water, then we kind of gave them electricity with solar panels, and our next project was how to give extra classes to the kids and build a community center. So this NGO has been really on the ground. They know the people there really well. So when this whole thing started, they gave us a list of families that would need devices. And yesterday, we got all these pictures back where the kids now have the devices and are really excited about learning, and we can actually hook them up. So now they are in a kampung, but luckily that kampung is covered, so it does have internet coverage, network coverage. And we also at YTL Foundation run a learning center. I think I mentioned where we get our scholars to intern and to volunteer. So since MCO started, we've been running classes every day for 4 hours a day, continuing with, and we have maths class, English class, even Mandarin class, which the parents attend. And so this group has got really used to Zoom lessons, and it's really fun. So on Monday, or I think maybe Tuesday next week, we're going to get these kids, 22 kids, in a kampong in the middle of nowhere in Sarawak, to come into a class, you know, that is together with the other kids from KL, and, you know, for them to be able to learn together. And I find that is so awesome and so inspiring that we can actually connect children who are really physically so far apart, and then they can learn about each other as well. And so I think technology is enabling all this. It's giving us the opportunity to do things that we never would have thought that we would do. I mean, we had physical classes and we never thought that why would we bring these kampong kids into our class, but now we can. And I think, you know, that's truly something that if there's any benefit from the MCO is for us to re-look at how we can kind of touch each other's lives through a different forum.
That's very interesting and fascinating. There is a follow-up question from Tan Sri Salem Anwar to you, Datin Kathleen. Yeah. The question is, how serious are corporate sector in addressing their CSR programs? I think in general, what do you think? Are corporate sector really serious in doing this, or they are just for the window dressings of annual reports or something? This is the question.
Yeah, so I do not quite like the term CSR because that is the label that corporates put on, I have to do CSR, right? We are actually working to change communities, to, you know, make a difference, right? It's not to do with, yeah, CSR to me is not a great term because a lot of corporates, you're right, you know, we're a Bursa listed company and we have to post up what we do, you know, on the CSR side. We have to issue a sustainability report. But those are, so that's where it's too easy to say, I've just given some money to some project, take some pictures and put up on my annual report. It looks nice. Yeah, but I think that it's changing. So I work with quite a few other corporate foundations. So we formed that, there's a group of us that have formed a collective impact initiative in Klang. And together we try to say, let's pool our resources instead of working against each other. And we work with 12 schools in Klang to try to make a difference there. So I can see that with these partners that we have, that the shift is coming, you know, that people are really having teams that go on the ground. And as we said, once you volunteer or once you actually do the work on the ground and you see your impact, you know, the people want to do it. Whether the corporate at the top thinks that that's what's happening, but when you start having teams of people that are impacted by the work that they do, I think that will change. So it is a good thing that I think we have a requirement that forces companies to think about it, to think about what their corporate social responsibility is. But as we go along that journey, I feel that there would be more and more people who are genuinely in it to try to make a difference.
Thank you. The next question, I'll pose it to Dr. Sharifah. What would be your advice in ensuring that we embrace the new normal and ensuring all of us are doing our parts in keeping COVID-19 at bay? This question is more on addressing the recently announced Conditional Movement Control Order, CMCO, and the influx of people going about in their daily life, who at times seems out of control and putting their lives and others at stake. So what's your comment on your view on this?
Thank you, Prof. A tough question. So, you know, COVID-19 is very infectious. The SARS-CoV-2 virus is very infectious. And as mentioned previously, the vaccine will only be available probably next year, either middle or end of next year. And we are not sure how quickly Malaysia can get it. So once the MCO is lifted, even during the CMCO, you know, the spread of disease will happen. Because during the MCO was done to flatten the curve. So flattening the curve means just to slow down the spread of infection so that our public health services could contact trace patients, find the other possible contacts and try to break that chain. But that chain, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult to completely break that chain. And we can't be on MCO forever. So I understand the need to lift the MCO. It had to be done. And hopefully, you know, we're doing it gradually and in a systematic pattern so that we don't get the sudden outburst of patients later on. The flattening of the curve, the MCO, has helped our healthcare system tremendously. Otherwise, we would have been overwhelmed with too many cases at one point. And even though we know that the majority will only have mild disease, but we don't want those who are vulnerable, the elderly, those who have other medical problems. Those are the people who are really at risk and need that medical attention. So by flattening the curve, we could pay attention to this group and not overwhelm our healthcare service. But I think what's important is what I'm worried, based on these few pictures that I've been getting, videos that I've been getting, is that some segment of the population feel that the MCO has made the virus disappear. It has not. It's still around. So people need to remember that the virus is still there. It just needs one person to be COVID positive. And we know every day we're still getting positive cases. And that person will be able to pass it on to someone else. So the spread will begin again once the MCO is fully lifted. So it boils down to when the MCO is lifted, we need to maintain proper hygiene etiquette so that the spread will not happen too fast. So what do? First and foremost, we need to wear a mask. Especially when we're out in the public, we need to wear a mask. In the early days of COVID, I was one of the proponents to say not to wear a mask, because the masking is mainly to stop someone who is infected from passing it to someone else. It's not really to protect you so much, because you only get COVID if you're like face to face with a COVID positive patient. But nowadays, because we also understand that, even with very mild symptoms, someone can pass the disease. Therefore, the advice nowadays is to wear a mask at all times. Because, I have a bit of a sore throat here because I've been talking so much in the past few weeks. But I don't know whether this sore throat is actually part of COVID, right? Until I do a test. So not knowing that means that we can have very mild symptoms. Therefore, it's advisable for everyone to wear a mask because of that. Number two, making sure that you wash your hands or sanitize your hands regularly. I'm actually against these places where they give out gloves. I went to some supermarket, and after giving a sanitizer, I was forced to wear a glove. And having that glove stops you from washing your hand or sanitizing your hands regularly, and you'll be in that supermarket touching all sorts of surfaces and unknowingly touching your face if you're not wearing a mask, especially, and eyes and so on. So washing hands or sanitizing your hands regularly is far more important than wearing a glove when you're outside. And then cleaning our surroundings. So we're not very good at this. So it's not just our own homes, but especially out there, the public is out there. So how frequently are our restaurants, shops, offices, how frequently are we cleaning down our surfaces? Because that's where COVID lands. It's a droplet infection. So you sneeze, it drops on the table, it drops on your computer, it drops on your telephone. So when you're in a public space and that person is not wearing a mask, you can imagine how much contamination. So if you are in a corporation, if you're in an office, in a hospital, in a classroom, universities, make sure that you have regular wiping down of surfaces at all times, and obviously at home as well. Minimizing contact. So we hear a lot about social distancing, but we are human. I've not seen my mom for 2 months, and it's getting to me. I think it's getting to a lot of people. So it's almost impossible to say to everyone, keep a meter away from other people, right? So we have to be able to adapt. What is more, so maybe instead of saying, keep a meter away at all times, try to minimize the contact, a lot of Muslims nowadays, we tend to, when we meet each other, we salam each other. The younger ones will be like kissing the hands and then hugging and then, cheek to cheek. Maybe we need to stop that, while this thing is going around. So greeting each other will be different. And if we're in the public, wearing a mask will help as well. The other thing is, even though the MCO is lifted, I think there are some population that still needs to try to stay at home as much as you can. The vulnerable population, I think they should still try to avoid public places. And for us who are a bit younger, that if we do get COVID, we might not be very sick, we should also try to avoid visiting the more vulnerable people and, you know, accidentally passing the disease to them. So limiting that would also help as well. So there's a lot to change, but we need to be realistic about what we can do. But what we should not do is go back to what we used to do before, because that would be disastrous.
Yeah. Thanks for your advice, Dr. Sharifah. But there is another question to you, which is a bit, I don't know whether it's personal or not, but Dr. Sharifah, in your experience being a frontliner and also observing your time dealing with COVID-19, and also during your daily work, how do you maintain your composure dealing with cases where you have the infants' lives on the line, or in the case where you have your nearest and dearest as patients? How do you maintain your composure? Can you share with us?
I think the one thing about COVID is we try to minimize the contact with patients. So, which is why earlier I said I feel a bit embarrassed to call myself a frontliner, because I hardly go face to face with every single patient. I only see the very sick ones. And secondly, because of COVID, we don't have visitors in. We don't have next of kin in the hospital. So there's not much interaction face to face with next of kin, of visitors, even for the very, very sick ones. So you don't get that emotional trauma, if you like, with compared to, you know, when we see other kind of patients. But however, yesterday I met with a group of a family where out of the six of them, 4 of them became positive, and they live in a small flat nearby. And the thing that really struck me was not the disease, because they had very mild disease. They were all well, did not have very severe respiratory symptoms, but the stigma that they faced was real. You know, you hear about it, but you only understand it when you speak to them. So what happened is, you know, when the ambulance came to fetch them, there were people taking videos, and one of them had her photos circulated. Don't know where they got the photo from, saying that this patient has COVID, stay away. So the whole family was stigmatized, and that was probably very, very sad. And we you know, we don't know what else we can do, because I think there's a lot of information out there about what is COVID, what to do, what not to do, hand hygiene and whatnot, but we don't talk a lot about the stigma of becoming a COVID positive patient. And also our healthcare workers who are working for the COVID ward. So I have medical officer specialists who after they've been on service for a week don't want to go home, because they're so worried that they will infect their children, their parents who stay with them. So having this daily conversation to try and reassure them, to say that, look, we've given you the best PPEs that we can while you're working. We teach them, make sure they know what they need to do when they're meeting with a COVID patient, just to try and give them, I mean, these are healthcare workers who should know the science of it, but because of the emotional stigma there, you can understand where the fear is coming from. So I think talking to people face to face, asking them what the real problem is equally important to all this information that we're spurning out there.
That's very sad because the frontliners has to face this, but I hope the public will not be reckless and follow the guidelines carefully. The next question comes from Mr. Wu. It's for academicians. I think Dr. Eileen will be the best person to answer this. The question is, how are our universities in Malaysia can transform into a relevant entity in the country to be champions for community engagement work beyond providing knowledge. Do you hear that, Dato'? You want me to repeat the question?
Thanks, Prof. Please repeat, because just now you have a bit of breaking up a little bit.
So I repeat again.
Prof, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. The question is, how are our universities in Malaysia can transform into a relevant entity in the country to be champions for community engagement work beyond just providing knowledge? How can the public universities be champions of community engagement, not just simply imparting knowledge? Maybe the question asks for more practical role of the universities in order to help the community.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Abby, for the question. I think currently, under the Kementerian Pendidikan Tinggi in Malaysia, we have this program. That's what we call University for Society. That is a platform where all universities, academics, staff, and also students having the opportunity to share our knowledge with the society. Like what Abby have mentioned, not just sharing knowledge, but what, like I've mentioned earlier, we have to instill the commitment, the volunteerism. We have to balance the knowledge and the character among our younger generation. Without denying, we know that each student that graduate from all the universities, they will be equipped with specific knowledge depending on the subject or the course they undergo during their 4 years in the university. But during this 4 years, how do we actually blend them into having a good character, to be a person who has empathy for the society? So now, through this University for Society, this platform, we are going to expose the students into activities, into programs and exposure, so they can actually instill and create a balance between their knowledge and their character. So when they are out in the society, in the real world, they can actually be not only a good citizen, but a citizen we call a more humane citizen. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Next question is to, let me see, I think Datin Kathleen. It's related to the previous questions. The question is, I would like to suggest that it is timely for the corporate sector to address their, instead of CSR, but this is CSER, corporate, social, and environmental responsibility. What is your take on that? What do you think? Meaning, I think not only on social, but also the corporate sector is asked to also look after environment protection, things like that.
Yeah, I think we are as well going in that direction, because when we talk about sustainability, so it's no longer a requirement just to have CSR, but you've got to report on what are you doing to make your business sustainable. And a lot of that has to do with, making sure the environment is taken care of. And the other thing is, I mean, we have in YTL a group of young people, and the young people are really driving this because they have grown up in this world and they feel very passionate about this. I think maybe the older generation just got, a bit of a boiled frog syndrome, right? We've lived in this, it looks fine to me, it's fine. But the young people are very passionate about the environment and what we're doing. And I think that again, these young people that we keep talking about, they are the agents of change, right? We just need to get them to have the right character, to have the right moral values, and they're going to lead the change for us. And companies will change. I mean, there's not just environmental pressure from shareholders and people who won't invest if you have a bad environmental record. I mean, all this is coming. I think companies cannot insulate themselves from that. But also it will be the groundswell. It will be the fact that the kids that come out of school will no longer tolerate the fact that we treat our environment badly. So I have hope in that direction too.
Yeah, we hope so. That the corporate sector, the companies will be more responsible and also participate in environment protections, and also, looking at SDG 17s, all the 17 SDGs by the United Nations. And hopefully other companies will follow something YTL has been doing for some time. My next question is to Dr. Sharifah. This is from unknown, can see the sender. The question is, in low and middle income countries, community engagement initiatives has been described as critical enabler in the response to communicable diseases. Such initiatives may be particularly important in settings where health systems are under-resourced and the collective capacity of communities become a key resource in affecting behavioral change and delivering health outcomes. So in your opinion, Dr. Sharifah, how do we activate our community to be the agents of change in the fronting the COVID-19 pandemic? You get it? Maybe something related to educational as well.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose COVID-19 is something quite new, acute, and you don't really see much of that long-term community engagement kind of thing. But and yes, our resources are mainly focused on the hospitals, the screening, public health, and whatnot. So that engagement from the community is the funding is not really there. But making sure that the community knows what they need to do is obviously very, very important. But I think maybe for COVID-19, because of the fear, because of the restriction of going out, so there's not much that the NGOs or other bodies can do in terms of dealing with the COVID per se. Maybe yes, in helping other aspects, making sure that the community are well fed, financially okay, and are not completely isolated, which may obviously harm their health as well. For example, other non-COVID diseases suffers during the COVID time. Hospitals, for example, UMMC, our capacity for other services have gone down. So the other diseases are in a way neglected during this COVID-19 time. So this is where the other NGOs, bodies can come in, community services, community engagement can come in to make sure that don't just think about COVID, think about other diseases as well that are neglected during these times. So for us, for example, because we look after a big population of HIV patients, we were really worried that our HIV patients would not be able to get their medications, services, and so on. And for HIV, it's important that they do not discontinue their medication. It's not like, other diseases where if they stop their medication, they may be unwell for a bit, but the moment they restart the medication, they'll be fine. But for HIV, if you stop the medication, there's a huge risk that the medication may not work anymore once you restart. So, so we got our NGOs to disseminate this information, get hold of our patients, tell them, if you can't get in, if you can't get your medication, this is what you do, we will help you, and so on. So I think that's one of the ways that they can help, yeah.
Okay, thank you. There is one question which is open to all panelists by Dr. Chandra Kantan. The question is, what would be the critical community engagement area that is deemed important post-COVID-19? So after not post COVID-19, maybe after MCO, because as you said, Dr. Sharifah, COVID-19 will be here for some time. So I think post MCO, or in a few months to come, what would be the critical community engagement that we should do in order to help the community? I think we'll start with Dato' Eileen first, and then maybe each of you have a different community engagement or suggestion for community engagement. Dato', please.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. If I've been given the choice to make a priority selection, I would go into those small retailers who is currently facing huge impact since MCO, affect their business, or even because I'm from a marine biology space, the fishing communities, they have been affected tremendously by the MCO. They are, and now they need more attention. And these communities, they need some boost to actually help them to start up the business again. Because now, even though MCO will be lifted, but like what Dr. Sharifah has mentioned, we have to go into the new norm. Things will be different. There will be less dining out, less kanduris, so that will definitely affect the food sector. So I think for the big industries is not much issue, but for the small traditional fishermen who's in the coastal area, even without MCO, they are also having an issues, being sustaining their livelihood. With MCO now, they are more suffering. Like I've been dealing with the oyster growers, for 2 months, they're unable to sell their oysters. That meaning that for 2 months, they have no income. So how, and even after MCO, most probably the public would not go to eat oysters. Oysters is not the staple diet at the moment. So how do we actually help them now? When there's a crash in their income. So I would target into the coastal communities. Because it's more closer to my heart and to my expertise. Thank you.
Yep. In Perlis, for example, now is the what do you call harum manis season, and the fruits that harvested cannot be distributed because of this MCO, and these are the people, the oyster growth, and even in other rural areas, and especially those who are working, without salary, those like farmers, and I think they will be impacted most, and perhaps it will be good if we can think of something to help them.
Yes.
I think, Kathleen, you want to chip in? You want to say something?
I mean, I would be really worried about the refugee community. I mean, we have about almost 200,000, and also the maybe undocumented foreign workers. I mean, these communities are living on the fringe anyway, right? And I know for the refugees, these families, that some of them that we support, we've been giving them food aid, right? People have been very good giving these communities food aid and making sure that they can survive through that. But they're worried about the next thing. I mean, definitely when the small shops and the retailers are closed, these guys have no work. And they're worried about rent. They're going to be kicked out of whatever miserable accommodation they live in. And, where are they going? They have nowhere to go. And then the foreign workers, I think, we really need to think about the strategy of dealing with them, because one, there's a fear that disease is within that community. People will shun them and isolate them. On the other hand, if they come forward for medical treatment, they are in danger. And so they're in this no man's land, no income, no health care, And I think it's going to be a humanitarian crisis if our country doesn't recognize this and really deal with this seriously. So that would be my big area of concern.
Yeah. I would think not only because of the humanitarian issues, but also because of the practicality. We have to engage with them, otherwise they will become the source of the virus if we neglect them. So I think it's very important for us to also look after them. For Dr. Sharifah, I think I'll ask you another question related to healthcare as well. Do you think healthcare process will change post-COVID? For instance, more tech being used to control crowds in hospitals, such as online consultation for less serious patients, distribution of medicines, and etc. What do you think on that?
Yeah, definitely, Prof. Even before the MCO has been lifted, we have been at work drafting guidelines, SOPs, and whatnot in order to adapt to the new norm. So it's not, everywhere. I think when going back to the initial question of, community engagement, even NGOs and people who are involved with community engagement need to think out of the box now, how to adapt services for this new norm. So hospitals, definitely, we are doing telemedicine, setting up clinics, going through, notice that I think Kathleen is a lawyer, so going through the legalities of telemedicine, the do's and don'ts, and how to make sure that it's done well. And coming to the hospital nowadays, patients and visitors will be screened. Mask is to be worn at all times. Visits minimized. Dispensing of medicines will be different. Everything changes. Everything will change. Some of it is actually basic infection control. So, COVID hasn't come with a new set of precautions. It's actually just a reminder to us that there's always going to be new diseases out there, new viruses out there. So it's also a reminder to the healthcare workers that, we should be on guard all the time when it comes to emerging new infectious diseases. So things that we may have neglected or took for granted in the past. So COVID has just made us realize that we really need to put things in place so that we are ready if another virus comes in.
Okay, let me browse if there are other questions that are asked by the audience. Okay, there is one question to Datin Kathleen. How can universities, like UUM, get in touch with YTL Foundation to collaborate to empower the communities?
Oh, just write to us. Just write to me at YTL Foundation at ytl.com.my. Yeah, we'd just be happy. We've collaborated with several universities and we've done projects, particularly with UKM. But yeah, very happy to collaborate with universities.
I will definitely do that. Okay, let me check again. Okay, this is another one. This is from, it's about volunteerism. Okay, let me read. Volunteerism, donations, grants may not be sustainable and consistent in the long run. How do we get all parties to be involved and pledge time and resources in a more committed manner without waiting for any crisis to happen first? A blended approach among humanitarian agencies, NGOs, healthcare institutions, government and private sectors. So I know it's not easy to do that, but maybe we can think of how we can get everybody involved, the NGOs, hospital, government, private sectors, universities, and community leaders. How can we get all of them involved and pledge time and resources? Do you have any suggestions? Anybody want to contribute? Datuk, maybe?
Yeah, Prof. Ayoib, I think this is this is a very common question being raised by many sectors, even especially the government sectors. That is why in our education blueprint, we have early on we have this quotable helix, and now we have add on the environment component in this quotable helix as well. Quotable helix, for maybe Datin, who are not in the academic line, is about bridging the gap between the community, the academics, that means the higher education institution, government, and also the industry with the community. There is 4 components, and now there's 5 components in putting in the environment. That means in whatever program or approach that we're using, we have to balance out people, environment, and also profit, to strengthen all the collaboration. This is what we call synergizing the partnership to move together for a common goal. Sometimes when we're dealing with cases overseas, we would try to use local knowledge to solve global issues. Like pandemic, COVID-19 I would consider is a global issues. So how do we come together, join hands to use most probably some, tap into local knowledge and contributing to solve this global issue. But like what Prof. Ayoib is saying, easier said than done. How do we get everybody in together? I think the universities, we have the facilities to do research, to do discovery, we have innovations, and the corporate sectors, most probably you can reach out, and of course, you have your policies, and you have your funders, you have, because it's called foundation, you can support in certain ways. And we have the government in to actually endorse certain policies. And by having the community involved, because community, by playing a role, simple thing like staying at home, washing hands, that is, I would consider as the contribution of the community as well. If we give them proper awareness, proper reaching out to them properly, all this can synergize together and make things happen and solve not only local issues, but also global issues. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's not easy to do that. We can organize or coordinate all people to come, all stakeholders, government, company. But at the end of the day, if there is no money involved, I think this will not go very far. What I can suggest is that maybe the government can think of something, incentive, tax incentive, for example, so that the corporate sector will be more willing to contribute and participate in this kind of program as well. YTL have done that. I mean, many other big companies has also their fund allocated for CSR or community engagement. And I'm sure, given time, as I think Kathleen said earlier, people will join after they can feel the advantage, the benefits of the community engagement. I think I have one more questions from the audience, from Dr. Abdul Malik Salau. He asked about, this is the question, the issue of stigmatization and the trauma of COVID patient was mentioned. How can the NGOs, government, and the community help COVID patient get reintegrated into the system post-COVID? Do you think that there is a need for legislation in this regard? I think you are from the legal background. Maybe you can answer this first. How to post-COVID trauma and all that? How can NGOs, government, help these people? And do you think there is there is a need for proper legislation in order to enforce that?
I mean, even though I'm a lawyer, I would say legislation is not the answer. It is a human problem, right? It is I think it's education. You just have to educate people. I mean, like AIDS patients, you know, there's this huge stigma and fear. And I think over time, people have been educated to understand it much better and deal with it better. So, you know, if you legislate to say you can't discriminate against someone who's had COVID, I mean, you know, how do you catch and police this? It's so insidious if someone wants to discriminate, right? How are you going to say, define what that discrimination means, which is what you need in a court of law. So I would say education is extremely important in the post-COVID world, both educating people as to how to prevent themselves getting it, if they have it, what's the issue, and post-COVID. And then understanding, you know, in a loving way, how people who have gone through so much suffering and coming out of it, that they need your support rather than being isolated and discriminated against. Maybe Dr. Sharifah will have more to add to that.
We have a whole
something?
Stigmatization. Infectious diseases, you know, a lot of our diseases are constantly being stigmatized. HIV, as mentioned by Dr. Kathleen. You know, 30 years down the road, even though we know how it's being transmitted, but the stigma is that it's not just because of the disease, but because of the community that's associated with the disease. You know, people who are thought to be of no worth. You know, people, the sex workers, the drug users, and so on. So it's not just the disease, but it's also the community that you are talking about. So now we're seeing more and more foreign workers with COVID-19. So they have like a double stigma there. So totally agree. It's all about education. It's all about the perception, what you think. And that's the most difficult thing to change. And it's not just, you know, out there in the community, it's also within the healthcare system itself. For example, HIV, we have healthcare workers who will not work with HIV patients despite knowing the risk of transmission and whatnot, because it's an ingrained stigmatization that's there, and that's the most difficult thing to break. So we hope that with some education, at least the majority of people will begin to understand what COVID-19 is, understand that once a person is recovered, they're recovered. The other problem is that we still don't know the full story of COVID-19. So we feel that once you're recovered, and I think there's more and more evidence to say that, you know, you're very, very unlikely, or you're not going to pass on the disease anymore once you've recovered from it. But, you know, that kind of data is just slowly coming out. And then you get, so the bad thing about social media is that you get all these new, you know, breaking news coming out that, you know, the fear is just about to come down, then some news comes in and the fear goes up again. You know, we were just about to calm down, then some fear about severe COVID in children, you know, so the fear just gets perpetuated from time to time. So that just builds on, you know, makes this very, very difficult to overcome the stigma. So just getting people to be more rational, be more empathy, have more empathy, try to really understand what is true news, what is fake news, what is sensationalized news, and so on. So that's, yeah, lots and lots of obstacles. But not legalization. Trying to legalize it, it's impossible.
Okay, thank you very much. All heroes, all who happen to be ladies, they are gentlemen who are heroes as well, of course. But I wish the Faisal Tahi can attend this, but unfortunately he wasn't able to do that. So I'm the only hero around, surrounded by three beautiful ladies. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, sadly, all good things must come to the end. Before we part, I would like to say perhaps the last words about this. I think we need to have more heroes in our country. And as discussed earlier by all panelists, work satisfaction is very important. And the more we give, the more we will get back. I think this belief is in all religions, whether it's in Islam or Christianity or any other religion. So the more we give to people, to poor people, handicapped or orphans, and the more we'll feel, not only in terms of work satisfaction, but actually in rewards, in terms of even financial, that we may not realize. So this is important way to move on in our life too. So before I end, I would like to record my heartfelt appreciation to all our panelists. Yang bahagia Prof. Datuk Dr. Aileen Tan from USM, yang bahagia Datin Kathleen Chu from YTL Foundation, and Associate Professor Dr. Sharifah Farida Syed Omar from UC Malaya, for taking time off their busy schedule to share their insights with us today. Also, a big thank you to the Ministry of Higher Education, UUMIT, UTLC, UUM Corporate Com, JPP, and the UM Center for University Industry Collaboration for making this happen. To our audience, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you all of you again in our next University for Society Forum. Till then, stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Malin. Thank you, Sharin.
Thank you.
Feedback.
So we can leave, yeah?
Anyway, it was a very enjoyable session.